All right. Welcome back to the live show. You know what time it is. Welcome back. It is currently 7:04 p.m. And of course, today's date is the 1st of August 2025. Yes, we are back. It is your boy Genesis. Welcome back to the Genesis show. You know what time it is. Yes, it is Friday. Okay. And you know what they say about Fridays? It is the weekend. So a lot of people are just kicking back, having a good time. They've worked hard during the week, okay, Monday to Friday. And it's Friday evening, okay? So it's time to relax, enjoy the time with your family, okay? Take them out, have a good time, and just be grateful to God and thankful for what you have. And with that being said, of course, you know what we do here. We talk about what's going on around and across the United States. So this happened about, say, 8 or 9 days ago. Rand Paul leads the Senate Homeland Security Committee on a very, very interesting special briefing, and I would want us to listen to this right here because a lot of people don't like to listen to stuff like this, or a lot of people don't get the opportunity to listen to hearings like this, which I think it is absolutely important. Okay, it is important to listen to these types of hearing. Shout out to the legendary, the GOAT, Dr. Luke, the GOAT. Thank you for being here. It says, hello, Genesis. God bless you, Dr. Luke, the GOAT. And of course, Sandra. God bless you, Sandra. She says, hey, Jen. Hey, Dr. Luke. Yes, shout out to the two great moderators that we have. Whoa, 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 whoa. No, okay. These are members, okay? Dr. Luke, the GOAT, is an esteemed member of the channel. And of course, Sandra is an esteemed member of the channel. Uh-oh. Dr. Luke, legendary, the GOAT. He just says, why wait? God bless you. Shout out to Dr. Luke. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You are absolutely amazing, Dr. Luke. Thank you for the super chat. Man, he's been a blessing to the channel. I got to tell you, Dr. Luke, the GOAT. That's why he's named the GOAT. It's not hard to see why he is the GOAT. Dr. Luke, the GOAT, thank you for the super chat. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the Genesis show. I'm going to pop in and pop out. I'm going to pop in like I am here, and I'm going to pop out. Okay. I'm going to breathe in and breathe out. Okay. I'm going to breathe in and breathe out. Okay. And with that being said, let's get straight to the show. Here we go.
Pedro is to be the U.S. Undersecretary for Science and Technology at the Department of Homeland Security. Mr. Allende serves as the Secretary of Florida's Department of Management. He previously served in several roles in the executive branch, including a Deputy Assistant Secretary at Department of Homeland Security. Second is Sean Planke, to be the Director of Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security at the Department of Homeland Security. Mr. Planke currently serves as Senior Advisor at the Department. He is a veteran of the United States Coast Guard and served at the Department of Energy during the first Trump administration. Next is Christopher Cox, to be the Intelligence Community Inspector General. Mr. Cox currently serves as Senior Advisor to the Director of National Intelligence. He is a veteran of the United States Air Force and previously operated his own business. And last but not least is Edward O'Connell, to be Associate Judge of the D.C. Superior Court. Mr. O'Connell presently serves as the Chief of Staff and Deputy General Counsel in the Office of the Inspector General for the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission and Defense Nuclear Facility Safety Board. Prior to joining the IG, he was a career prosecutor serving in the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office as an Assistant State's Attorney in Baltimore, Maryland. The witnesses have submitted written statements, and I ask unanimous consent to submit letters of support received for the nominees. Without objection, those will be entered into the record. In the interest of time, I will forgo opening marks, but I will recognize the ranking member, Senator Peters.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm relieved to see that Paul Ingracia, the nominee to run the Office of Special Counsel, has been pulled from today's hearing. The Office of Special Counsel is an independent, nonpartisan agency that investigates allegations of prohibited personnel practices involving federal employees, including whistleblower retaliation. Mr. Ingracia is unqualified for the position, both in terms of legal experience and given his long record of bigoted statements. And I urge the administration to formally withdraw his nomination. We have a number of nominees for critical roles in the Department of Homeland Security, the intelligence community, and the courts in our nation's capital before us today. Sean Blanke is nominated to lead the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA. Mr. Blanke, thank you for joining us here today. If confirmed, you will be tasked with overseeing an agency that has been gutted by the Trump administration. As you know, CISA is the backbone of our nation's cybersecurity defense system, protecting federal networks and partnering with the private sector. CISA is the only civilian agency with the infrastructure, the expertise, and the statutory authority to carry out this critical work. Since President Trump's first term, he has worked to decimate CISA, most recently slashing its workforce by more than 30% and eliminating key leadership positions. The administration has also proposed a nearly 20% budget cut for the agency for fiscal year 2026. Cyber attacks are one of the most significant national security threats our nation faces, and I'm extremely concerned by this administration's actions that are undercutting CISA's capacity to defend our nation. We are also considering the nomination of Christopher Fox to be the Inspector General of the intelligence community, a role that demands full independence and credibility. This nomination also deserves scrutiny. Mr. Fox's decision to accept a political appointment in the office of the Director of National Intelligence, even after he was nominated to serve as Inspector General, gives me pause. Not only is he a senior advisor to the director, but he is also currently running the Information Management Office, which handles FOIA, declassification, and record retentions issues, all matters that would likely need to have independent review from the eventual confirmed Inspector General. We also have Pedro Allende, who is nominated to lead DHS Science and Technology Directorate. This directorate plays a critical role in ensuring DHS components have the most reliable and effective technology to carry out their Homeland Security missions. The threats we face are getting more complicated each day, and DHS must have the right tools to address those threats and keep Americans safe. And finally, we have Edward O'Connell, who is nominated to be the Associate Judge of the D.C. Superior Court. The D.C. Superior Court functions as a state-level trial court here in the nation's capital. The court handles some of the highest case volumes in the country and is strained further by extended vacancies on the bench. Every day, judges on the Superior Court decide matters that impact the freedom, livelihoods, and safety of individuals and families across the District of Columbia. Currently, 15 of the 62 seats on the court are vacant, with 2 more judges set to retire in September. These vacancies delay cases and place serious burdens on the current judges. And I'm glad to see the administration is moving forward with the nominees for this important role and will help carry out justice in our nation's capital. I look forward to hearing from all of you here today, hear more about your experience and how you plan to approach these very important roles that each of you have been nominated for. Welcome to the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It is the practice of the committee to swear in witnesses. Will the nominees please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you will give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? It's a standard practice of this committee of the chairman to ask the nominees the following question. Do you agree without reservation to...
Got to give a shout out to Sandra. God bless you, Sandra. Sandra says, super channel and amazing people, even with the occasional liberal. Yes, the occasional liberal. We accept liberals independent, conservatives, whatever you are, we accept you over here. All right. This is where you can actually express yourself for what it actually is, which is free speech. Okay. We don't block people except you're just being, absolutely ridiculous. But for the most part, we love the United States. It is America first before parties, okay? We don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. It is, of course, we love Republicans, but we don't care if you are a Democrat or Republicans or independent. Here, it is America first. It is country before party. So I got to give a shout out to the gorgeous, the beautiful, the amazing Sandra. Thank you for the super chat. And she is a member of the channel as well. So double shout out to Sandra. God bless you.
Comply with any request or summons to appear and testify before any duly constituted committee of Congress if you are confirmed. Thank you. You may be seated. We will now proceed to questions where each member will have 5 minutes. We'll start with Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to the four of you for this nomination to serve our country. Thank you for your willingness to serve, by the way. I know it's a big sacrifice, and certainly all of you will be doing a great service to your country. Mr. Blanky, I'll start with you. I enjoyed meeting with you. I enjoyed our conversation. The good news is you're not completely insane, which already makes you dramatically more qualified than your predecessor. So, question for you would be, how are you going to restore the agency's reputation? Over the last 4 years of the Biden administration, we saw an agency that should have the total trust and respect of the American public deteriorated into a spying agency on American citizens. How will you restore the confidence of Americans in that agency?
Senator, thank you for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. Extremely honored to be here and have the opportunity, if confirmed, to lead the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. If confirmed as the leader of CISA, I'd seek to restore CISA to its congressional authorities and focus on the missions that this body tasked it with, which is securing the federal executive branch and then securing the critical infrastructure of the United States. Thanks, Chair.
And there's a lot of acronyms that are thrown here. I'm only through 10,000 of them so far. I think we've got 200,000 acronyms left to go. Can you explain, for the record and for my colleagues, the difference between CISA, the agency, which you're going to restore back to its original mission, as we just described, and CISA 2015, which is set to expire in September, and what the implications are of not having that renewed, and how that's very, very different than the agency that we just discussed?
Yes, Senator. CISA, the agency, or Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, is mandated to follow the congressional direction to secure the federal computing executive branch, federal civilian executive branch computer systems, and then also protect the critical infrastructure of the United States, often thought of as the nation's cyber defense agency. Now, CISA 2015 was the 10-year authorization of information sharing. That law in particular was actually very critical for protecting liabilities of sharing information for business to business and business to government when a business has a cybersecurity breach or concern. They then could share that information to protect themselves and protect others without experiencing liability for sharing that information, Senator.
And what would be the implications if that was just let to expire?
Senator, if that was let to expire, in particular in the financial sector, who does some of the largest, the most prevalent amount of information sharing, they would experience difficulties in sharing and community protection of information security, and then other industries would as well. And I would note, Senator, that Secretary Noem, my boss, she supports the reauthorization of CISA 2015. Senator.
And what's your current role? What are you doing now?
Yes, sir. I am the senior advisor to the Secretary, focused on the United States Coast Guard.
Gotcha. And just a little bit of off topic for just a second. What is the morale among the Coast Guard, knowing that the One Big Beautiful Bill just gave them historic funding?
Yes, Senator. The morale in the Coast Guard is very high right now. They received the largest amount of funding in $24.59 billion to restore airplanes, ships, infrastructure, piers, buildings, and training centers for the United States Coast Guard. And that's also demonstrated in, they just hit recruitment numbers of putting 5,200 men and women of the United States through Training Center Cape May this year, which is an all-time high that we haven't seen since 2002.
That's great. So it's nice to have a commander-in-chief that's refocused on the vital role that the Coast Guard plays, and glad to see those recruitment numbers playing out. Obviously, representing Ohio, it's got big Coast Guard presence there. We are seeing that. It's just great to see that we have made that historic investment in the Coast Guard. I'd wish more of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle had voted with us on that bill that gave that historic funding to the Coast Guard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to all of our nominees. Thank you for serving our country. Mr. Planke, I have a couple of fairly straightforward yes or no questions. Was the 2020 election rigged and stolen?
Senator, thank you for your question.
It's pretty much a yes or no question.
Thank you for your question, Senator. I have not reviewed any of the cybersecurity of the 2020 election.
Don't have an opinion on whether the 2020 election was rigged and stolen?
Senator, my opinion on the election as an American private citizen is probably not really relevant, but the Electoral College did confirm President Joe Biden swore him into office.
Well, let me ask you, were there, quote, widespread election malfeasance and serious vulnerabilities with the voting machines, end quote, that changed the election outcome?
Yes, Senator, as you know, elections are state-run entities, and many different secretaries of state across the 50 states of the United States pursue different methods to secure their own elections.
Mr. Planke, my time is limited, so I'm just going to say to you, there ought to be no hesitation in your answer to these questions. The agency that you've been nominated to lead, CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, along with the entire national security and intelligence community, agreed that the election was secure. You're undermining the confidence of the nation in the election apparatus at a time when that credibility is as important as ever, when you're about to lead an agency that has responsibility for that security. State and elections officers across the country ran audits and examinations, and on a bipartisan basis, affirmed that President Trump lost the election. He won the next election. The answer to my questions is no. The 2020 election was not rigged and stolen. There were no widespread election malfeasance and serious vulnerabilities, even though President Trump said there were. Now, I know it is a contentious topic, but your role in that agency is to be above politics. If you can't tell us with conviction and conscience that those elections were secure, I have very serious doubts about your ability to lead this agency. Let me ask you, if President Trump comes to you and he demands that CISA falsely claim that the 2026 or 2028 elections were rigged, what will you do?
Senator, as a cybersecurity professional, these are state-run elections. I have not reviewed the cybersecurity posture of all 50 states.
With all due
That's like
respect,
a doctor, Senator. That's like a doctor who's diagnosing somebody over the television because they saw him on the news.
No, it's like a doctor who has a patient come to him and is responsible for doing the diagnosis. It may be a second opinion, but it actually is the determinative opinion because you are the head of the federal agency that oversees the security of our election system for the entire nation. And you're telling me, in effect, you're just going to dodge, you're going to jump ship, you're going to evade that responsibility. I think that answer is completely unsatisfactory.
Senator, I did not say that I would dodge or abate any of my responsibility. I would remind you, Senator, that CISA is a consent-based cybersecurity agency, and cybersecurity, CISA is postured to respond and support every state across the United States, and we will gladly and do our due diligence to support those states across the United States.
You seem not to understand the responsibility of CISA. People turn to this agency for unbiased, objective, science, evidence-based expert information. And you're in effect saying that if President Trump comes to you and he says, I want you to say this election was rigged, you're going to yield to him. Thank you.
You know, when we talk about elections and whether or not they're rigged or not, I don't think one party or another is particularly immune to this. There's still people who believe that the Daley machine and the mafia conspired in Cook County in 1960. There's some evidence of it. You know, it's a long-time American tradition, you know, for both parties to question the other party in elections. I will say that in 2016, when Donald Trump won the first time, you know, Hillary Clinton, to this day, says that he was an illegitimate president. Jimmy Carter said he was illegitimate. From the very beginning, they tried to delegitimize Trump. So I would say it's no different. And in fact, if we're going to criticize Donald Trump for questioning the 2020 election, we should be equally critical of Hillary Clinton for questioning the 2016 election. The quotes are legion. I mean, dozens and dozens of quotes, dozens and dozens of interviews. Hillary Clinton to this day is unrepentant in this, but it's worse than that. That's just sort of an opinion. What they ended up doing is using the apparatus of government to try to delegitimize Trump. They used the apparatus of government to spread something that was a falsehood, that the Russians got the election for Donald Trump. He wasn't deserving. The people didn't vote for him. The Russians did this. But it turns out that all of the intelligence reports saying the Russians, of course they try to meddle. They meddle every time in all of our elections. But it was judged to be insignificant and not consequential until it wasn't. Until all of a sudden someone at the top of the intelligence community decided, oh, well, yeah, we think Donald Trump's illegitimate. We're going to spread this throughout government. And there basically was a conspiracy using government and using the power of the intel agencies. So for people who complain, Donald Trump complained about the 2020 election, my goodness. The Obama administration planted misinformation throughout government purposely. They planted it in lots of different places. At one point, John Brennan is asked the question by the analyst that he has selected, this information, sir, this dossier, this Steele dossier is opposition research, and it is unchecked. It is unverified. And Brennan's flippant response was, yeah, it sure sounds like it could be true. Sure rings true. This is the head of the CIA saying this. They got together and really cooked up something to delegitimize. So I really am not that interested in hearing, oh, Donald Trump says it, and will you admit the election wasn't rigged? There's a great book on this. It's called Rigged by Molly Hemingway. And in it, she goes through in great detail the Democrats' disregard. You know, does anybody remember the Democrats voted against seating electors? You know, the whole January 6th stuff, they say, oh, this is unprecedented. Republicans aren't seating the electors. Now, look, I voted to seat the electors. I thought the argument wasn't a valid argument. But the thing is, Democrats, including one of the ones who worked, Raskin, to impeach the president, he voted not to seat the electors in 2016 because he thought the election was rigged. So for goodness sakes, let's put this to rest. Both parties have accused each other of malfeasance. Both parties have accused the elections of being rigged. And let's just try to move forward.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, nothing you've said absolves this witness of a responsibility to answer these basic questions about the core responsibility of the agency he's been nominated to lead.
The CISA has nothing to do with the elections. The CISA has nothing to do with the state-run elections. Senator Moody.
Well, we will
Thank you,
agree
Mr.
to
Chairman.
disagree, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to our nominees for being here today. I know this is not an easy process, and we appreciate you standing ready to answer our questions. And to your families who are here with you and supporting you not only today, but after you are confirmed in these incredibly important roles. Public service is not easy, and we understand that and are grateful to you for the service to our country. I'd like to recognize we did not do introductions for efficiency's sake. If we were doing them, I would have proudly introduced one of our nominees today, Pedro Allende. Pedro has served the great state of Florida in his capacity as the Secretary of the Florida Department of Management Services, which comprises 3 areas of service, business, technology, and workforce. He oversaw a $1 billion budget and workforce of nearly 1,000 employees. He previously served as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Infrastructure, Risk, and Resilience Policy with the Office of Strategy, Policy, and Plans at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And in this role, he led policy development to protect U.S. critical infrastructure against cyber, physical, and natural threats, while overseeing policy efforts to increase federal and state local preparedness, response, and recovery capabilities. He's also served as a member of our Florida Cybersecurity Council. I have no doubt, if confirmed, he will once again serve the United States of America with great honor, and we appreciate you stepping up. Mr. Allende, if you can quickly, for the position for which you are nominated to serve now, it will be responsible for integrating cutting-edge technology and reliable scientific research to support the department's mission of keeping America safe. Can you give this committee an example of how, in your role currently as the Secretary of Florida's Department of Management Services, you've utilized new technology to better serve and protect the people of Florida?
Thank you, Senator Moody, for your kind words. I'm honored for the nomination by President Trump and for this committee's due diligence in the advice and consent role, and to my family, my wife behind me especially. In Florida, we have had the great opportunity to do interesting things, is how I describe it. We have had the opportunity to work not just within government, but also expand outward. The department currently has research agreements with the University of Florida, University of South Florida, FIU, and Idaho National Laboratory to fill in the gaps where state governments are not well equipped to provide solutions. Some of our innovative work has involved working on things such as assessments of locks and levy infrastructure and cybersecurity. Also, we have a project coming up that has been projected for next year with Idaho National Lab and Florida International University to assess battery technology and its security, which will include the issue that's been recently in the news about inverters on solar panels. So there's just a few of the examples. One example of just leveraging existing technology has been during Hurricane Ian in Southwest Florida. The governor and our team, as directed, ended up, in addition to the traditional effort of bringing mobile devices called colts and cows from the 3 telecom carriers to reestablish communications, we felt that there was a need to expand that, and we had the largest deployment of Starlink satellites 56 hours after landfall to restore connectivity to Floridians to begin the recovery process. Grocery stores, pharmacies to establish communications to manage their inventories and to bring that service to Floridians in need.
Well, thank you so much, and we look forward to you continuing your great service to the United States of America. No, a lot of leaders coming out of the great free state of Florida, and we're proud of you, sir. I'd like to also turn my attention now to Ed O'Connell. Welcome. You are nominated to serve on the Superior Court of the District of Columbia. As a former judge myself for over a decade, I know what goes into serving in a trial court when you're dealing with criminal matters, civil matters, family law matters, probate matters. Very important to this country and to the jurisdiction you will be serving specifically is efficiency in court. The delay sometimes denies justice to the litigants that come before it. What is your approach to maintaining efficiency within a court as a judge?
Thank you, Senator. The Superior Court of the District of Columbia is extraordinarily overburdened. There aren't enough judges on that court to move the caseload as it needs to be moved. So I view my role as a new judge on that court as one of the most important things I would have to do is manage a caseload expeditiously without sacrificing thoroughness to any thoroughness with regard to any one individual case. I think the unique training that I've had is it enables me to succeed at that role, and that training was being an assistant United States attorney in the Superior Court system for almost 20 years. Part of my job as an AUSA was to efficiently manage an extraordinarily high caseload without sacrificing the individualized attention due to any particular case.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fox, you wrote in your opening statement that you will be, quote, independent, impartial, and fair, end of quote, which, as we discussed in my office, is a core responsibility of the job of independent counsel. And yet, you accepted a senior advisor position in the Office of the Director of National Intelligence from Director Gabbard after you knew that she had put your name forward for the role of Inspector General. And you are also now acting chief of the Information Management Office at ODNI. So my question for you, sir, is how can we or the employees of the intelligence community trust that you will indeed be independent, impartial, and fair when you chose to work in the very office that you were nominated to oversee?
Thank you for the question, Senator, and thank you again for taking the time to meet with me. I appreciate our conversation. Being truthful and being independent are my top priorities, as the Inspector General have confirmed, and I was chosen for the role of senior advisor and ultimately for the role of Inspector General, I believe, because of my reputation for doing so. And I only took this role as senior advisor, which in reality is just a title. My duties have been to perform as acting chief of the Information Management Office, which is overseeing the release of records to the public for FOIA requests, Privacy Act, and we have a number of other groups. And I'm dedicated to transparency and rebuilding public trust. One thing I'd like to add is since day one, the entire leadership team has understood the importance of that independence, and for that purpose, I've been properly insulated from any personnel decisions or any significant organizational decisions, to the extent that if I'm in a meeting and one of these topics arises, I will literally leave the room, and they've respected that and supported that effort.
Well, you know, you shared with me the same information in my office, which I appreciated, but it still, I believe, raises serious questions about some judgment as to why you would take that position, given your background. As Senator Moreno highlighted with his questions, CISA 2015 is a critical law that provides liability protections to businesses that share threat information with the federal government and each other. These authorities play a key role in coordinating public-private responses to cyber incidents, including the recent Volt and Salt Typhoon attacks. Mr. Planke, I'm pleased with the answer that you gave to my colleague. It was very thorough. I think it was pretty clear you fully support the reauthorization of that legislation as to how critical it is. And I understand Secretary Noem also fully supports the reauthorization of that as well. We are heading towards the deadline here at the end of September. So we have to take action before that time, Mr. Chairman. I know you and I have spoken about this on numerous occasions, and I look forward to working with you in the weeks ahead as we look at this deadline and trying to get legislation passed to make sure that those authorities are continue to be there. So thank you for your support. And if confirmed, I would hope to deliver a bill that allows you to continue to work with all of the partners necessary to provide cybersecurity in this country. Mr. Fox, I'm very concerned about Signalgate, both the sharing of classified information on commercial messaging app and the implication that those records have not been retained as they should have been. In our meeting on Tuesday, you reiterated that nothing classified was shared because the Defense Secretary, who is the original classification authority of the information, has confirmed that the messages were not classified. And yet, just yesterday, after you and I met, the Washington Post reported that the information Secretary Hegseth shared came from an email marked secret. You know exactly what that means. Secret is classified information that should not be shared with foreign allies. So my question for you, will it be your stance as IG, if confirmed, that the Secretary can simply retroactively say that operational battle plans involving men and women in uniform are not classified and thus try to avoid the consequences of sharing them in an unclassified manner?
Thank you for the question, Senator. With my IMO role, when we review information for classification, a part of that involves a line-by-line review. So if a document is marked secret no foreign, for example, it's likely that there are portions within that document that may be unclassified entirely. I can't speak to this because I'm not aware of the facts and circumstances. I'd also like to add that national defense information and DoD information would be originating from DoD, and thus DoD would be the appropriate entity to make any determination for that. That being said, to answer your question, as ICIG have confirmed, nobody is above the law, and I'm committed to conducting every single activity of the Inspector General's office in an impartial manner without fear or favor.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, first, I thank all of you for being here. Congratulations on your nominations. Our country faces numerous threats, and the work you are nominated to do is essential to supporting President Trump's mission of protecting American lives and infrastructure against the threats of Communist China, Russia, and more. Under both the Obama and Biden presidencies, we saw our intelligence community and other agencies weakened and weaponized against its own citizens, putting Americans at risk. We've seen policies put in place that undermine the agency's credibility in an attempt to enforce security at the expense of hardworking Americans. Thankfully, we have President Trump back in office. He and his administration take the threat that Xi Jinping and others pose to our country very seriously, and he knows too well the experience of intelligence agencies being weaponized for political purposes, with no one being held accountable. So let me ask Mr. Fox the first question. We've known for years that both the Obama and Biden administrations weaponized every element of the federal government against President Trump, including the intelligence community. Just last week, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard released over 100 declassified documents that she said provided overwhelming evidence of a treasonous and conspiracy by senior Obama administration officials to undermine President Trump's 2016 election. If confirmed, how would you prioritize reviewing the actions of our intelligence agencies during the 2016 transition, and how would you ensure your office's full independence when investigating current and former senior government officials?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I share the priorities of this administration and the Director of Rebuilding Public Trust, and there's a lot involved in that effort. If confirmed as IG, then I will take every action as appropriate to properly investigate or conduct audits and inspections as needed, aligned with the national intelligence priorities as best we can, and of course, consistent with congressionally directed actions.
Based on the evidence Ms. Gabbard put out, what reforms or safeguards would you advocate to prevent any future political weaponization of the intelligence community?
Well, that's a complex answer, Senator, and I appreciate it. Step one would be a zero-based review, if confirmed, to understand the roles and responsibilities within the office and make sure we have the right people in the right position with the right tools and the right intent. The ICIG is a cross-cutting office, so it does have the authority to oversee all 18 IC elements. And I would work with the ICIG Forum to ensure that we're working together as appropriate and ensuring that the watchers are conducting their oversight in each element of the IC appropriately and fully.
Thank you. My next question is for Mr. Allende and Mr. Planky. In May, U.S. energy officials found secret communication equipment inside Chinese-made devices like power inverters, which are used throughout the U.S. and the world to connect solar panels and wind turbines to electricity grids, and are also found in batteries, heat pumps, and electric vehicle chargers. The Biden administration recklessly rescinded Trump's first-term executive order that banned Chinese procurement or involvement in the U.S. power grid. I know this administration has restored that EO, and I previously filed a bill to codify that. Does the Chinese Communist Party have a kill switch embedded in our power grid through our use of Chinese renewable energy infrastructure like solar panels and Chinese batteries, and how we combat this and make sure we are not procuring CCC-made energy infrastructure? Mr. Allende, if you want to go first.
Thank you. Senator, thank you for your question. At present, I am not in the Department of Homeland Security. I don't currently have any insights into that matter. If confirmed, however, I look forward to studying that very deeply with the experts at the Directorate of Science and Technology. I can tell you that based on public reports, that is a concern that we have had in Florida, and we have taken action. We have started some work with Idaho National Laboratory to assess battery technology, which will include the inverters and solar panels. We previously conducted an OT security assessment of Florida's locks and levees, and the Florida legislature in the 2023 session banned the use of Chinese drones, which our department effectuated regulations to ban those. Those were ultimately sent to the University of South Florida for testing for those very issues that you are describing. I'm just not aware of the results of those tests.
Senator, thank you for your question. I share the concern of you and my colleague, and we worked together in the original Trump 45 administration on this very issue. We are both concerned. I am concerned, and if confirmed, that it will be a priority of mine to remove all Chinese intrusions, exploitations, or infestation into the American supply chain. Yes, Senator, and I look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Senator Hassan.
Well, I thank you, Mr. Chair, and Ranking Member Peters for holding this important hearing, and I thank all of the nominees for your willingness to serve, and congratulations to you and your families, and I thank your families for their support as well. I'm going to start with a simple question, and we'll go right down the line from Mr. Allende to Mr. O'Connell. If you're directed by the President to take an action that would violate the law, would you follow the President's directive or follow the law? Mr. Allende.
Senator, thank you for your question. If confirmed, I find it very unlikely that the President or anyone acting on his behalf would ever instruct me to break the law. I don't believe that would ever happen.
But if it did?
If it did, as unlikely as that would be, I would consult with the Office of General Counsel as to the interpretation of the law. And if persists, if for some reason I disagreed with the interpretation, I would resign.
So are you committed to following the law or not?
Senator,
forget for the minute who instructs you to follow the law or whether there's a difference of opinion. Are you committed to following the law or not?
I am, Senator, and I think
thank you. That's a yes. Mr. Planky.
Thank you, Senator. I share my colleague's process that I don't believe the President would ever ask me to violate the law, but I do believe in upholding the rule of law. Yes, Senator.
Thank you. Mr. Fox.
Senator, in my professional capacity now, and if confirmed as ICIG, I will always follow the law.
Thank you. Mr. O'Connell.
Thank you, Senator. As a judge on the D.C. Superior Court, my only job would be to follow the law, and I couldn't anticipate any circumstance where anyone, the President of the United States or anybody else, would try to influence me to do anything other than follow the law.
Well, I appreciate your commitment to following the law. I will say to those of you who have just said out loud that you do not believe or expect the President of the United States to instruct you to break the law, that reflects a disconnection from reality that concerns me. I know you may have to say those things to satisfy the president or the people who are watching this hearing on his behalf, but it is an extraordinary statement given events. Now, Mr. Planke, as you know, improve their cybersecurity and protect critical assets. One of the key programs that supports this goal is the state and local cybersecurity grant program. This program provides grants to state and local governments to bolster their cybersecurity and better protect Americans from hostile actors and cyber criminals. Unfortunately, this program runs out of money in September. So my question to you, Mr. Planke, is do you support continued funding for the state and local cybersecurity grant program, and what would the impact be should Congress fail to fund it?
Senator, thank you for that question. I absolutely support state and local grant program for cybersecurity. I think there's many rural areas of America, and CISA exists to support all Americans across the United States, and one of the best ways to do that is through the state and local grant program.
Well, I appreciate that. It's not, you know, in a state like New Hampshire, 234 cities and towns, many of them very small. They just don't have the resources. And of course, the bigger impact, it's not only on each individual city or town or county, but it also, the weakest link in cyber impacts everybody. So I'd really appreciate working with you on that. Mr. Allende, under the 2024 DHS AI roadmap, the Science and Technology Directorate is set to build out the infrastructure needed to evaluate the risk that terrorists and criminals could misuse powerful AI models, right? So just this past week, OpenAI released a new model that for the first time they classified as having a, quote, high capability of producing biological harm, including dangerous pathogens. Given these very real risks to our national security, I'd like to hear from you about how you would prioritize specific types of AI risk as Undersecretary of Science and Technology, and how would you approach that prioritization?
Senator, thank you for your question. For background, I am an attorney and a manager. I have a very strong technical interest, and I study the material. But I am not a scientist or an engineer. If confirmed, however, the Directorate of Science and Technology has a number of experts within that I would consult on this matter. I can say that the kinds of models matter, whether it's large language, small language models, open and closed. And so that gets very granular. I am very happy to work with you and your team to discuss each of those options and how each one could be managed in a very granular way.
Are you concerned about the risk that AI poses?
Senator, thank you for your question. I am. In Florida, we have actually taken it upon ourselves at the department to build an AI use policy and to start addressing those very risks, both on the privacy aspects of what can be disclosed to a model and how to responsibly use a model.
So you must have some experience then in prioritizing what kind of risks you're looking at. My question, I mean, this is urgent. I mean, this is a national security and public safety matter, and it is an urgent one. We've got OpenAI saying they've now got an AI that is highly capable of producing biological harm. So this is on our doorstep. It's a national security issue. Do you feel urgency about it? And what's your plan to make sure that you're focused on the most serious threats?
Senator, I absolutely feel urgency behind it. The scope of what the Department of Management Services and what the Director of Science and Technology were very different, and I can't relate one to the other. If confirmed, I will.
So how are you qualified for the job?
Senator, my background as a lawyer has involved highly technical matters such as cybersecurity. I started the cybersecurity practice for my law firm. I have a master's in decision information science. I have a long history of working with very smart folks, such as scientists, engineers, data analysts, to bring those methodologies to bear on the problems that we have at the Department of Management Services. I am very happy and comfortable working with people much smarter than I and enabling them to do the job that they need to do
So I'm over time. I will follow up with you, but perhaps I can make this observation. This isn't necessarily about how smart people are, although that helps. This is about whether technologists who are engaged in this kind of work understand the risks and are willing to put some guardrails up and willing to prioritize how we go after making sure that these risks do not impact our national security and public safety. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think the question of whether we follow the law is an important question. Obviously, we should always follow the law. I think what makes it a more difficult question is we all know that you're not supposed to steal, you're not supposed to commit fraud. But if the president orders you to fire 10% of your people, is he breaking the law? There have been accusations made by the minority party that the president's authorizing people to break the law. Well, so it's a question. Can the president hire and fire people? It's gone all the way to the Supreme Court now, and the Supreme Court is siding with them. So we have to be careful about accusing the president and saying, oh, the president's ordering his people to break the law, because actually the court so far has sided with him on that. And the court may not side with him on everything, but that's why we have courts, and it is complicated. So when Mr. Allende responds that he would ask the council, it's sort of like, he's not the boss. He's probably a little bit removed from the president. He has to ask for counsel on it. And if you feel that the president resigning is sort of ultimately the answer on this, but it isn't, I would just argue, not as always as simple as we say, follow the law, when there's a dispute over the law. A lot of these things like separation of powers, we are probably going to have more separation of power issues decided under President Trump because he pushes the envelope than any president in our history. And you can argue that's good or bad, but the courts have so far sided with him on the hiring and firing that that's not illegal.
Note my respectful dissent from some of your characterizations, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Senator Ernst.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to our nominees for being here today and for your willingness to serve, and we thank your families as well. Mr. Planky, I'm going to start with you. We have behind me a chart, and it's quite lovely here, but it is something symbolic, but it is important. The blue outer ring and the inner red ring represent the unity with DHS and the commitment to cut through government red tape. However, federal agencies have been tied up in knots with outdated technology and many bureaucratic hurdles. Currently, the federal government maintains over 1 billion forms annually. That volume isn't just a paperwork problem. It's a symptom of deeply antiquated systems that are ranging anywhere from 8 to 50 years old. And unfortunately, modernization efforts so often become boondoggles. Take the Bureau of Land Management's attempt to modernize its oil and gas activity tracking, which ballooned to 3 times the projected cost. It was 4 years late, and it added 565,000 labor hours, resulting in $19 million of productivity losses. Outdated technology also leaves the federal government dangerously exposed. So, Mr. Planky, as CISA successfully assists state and local critical infrastructure to meet current cybersecurity protections, what will you do to ensure the federal government isn't falling behind while helping others catch up?
Thank you for that question, Senator. I was nervous you were going to ask me about the logo. We could change that if you so
we might have to work on that.
Roger that.
After we fix these problems.
Yes, ma'am. So, Senator, one of the ways I like to attack the problem is somebody who has worked in private industry, from startups to Fortune 10 companies. I think too often we love to focus on how we fix a problem, and basically when you're fixing something in the private sector business, you're stopping the bleeding, right? You stop the decremental decrease of what you're trying to process. The problem is you really actually need to grow or change the service, right? You need to make a shift in what you do and change the way that you approach the problem set to deliver something better, in this case for the taxpayer. And when you focus on fix, all you're doing is stopping the bleeding. And so what I'd like to focus on, and what I've done in my technical experience, is wholesale changes. So instead of investing more in bad processes and policies or making small adjustment micro changes in a process that is outdated to begin with, we will invest in wholesale changes and moves forward to deliver better outcomes for the American taxpayer.
That's outstanding. I appreciate that. Let's stop doubling down, spending additional money where we don't have to. It's just throwing money out the window. I'm going to move on to Mr. Fox. Your job ensures whistleblowers can trust the system they're reporting into. And as you know, last Friday, the Director of National Intelligence declassified documents exposing what she called a treasonous conspiracy carried out by some of the highest-ranking officials in our nation to weaponize the intelligence community against the incoming president of the United States, framing him as being the agent of a foreign government. And we know today that it was all a made-up lie. This carried real costs. The House of Representatives impeached the president in part over accusations built on fiction. Taxpayers were stuck with a $32 million bill for Mueller's witch hunt. Trust in our intelligence apparatus was undermined, and despite all of this, the American people saw through the lies and re-elected President Trump last November. So let me be clear, weaponizing government against political opponents is un-American. So, Mr. Fox, will you commit to turning over every rock, regardless of how uncomfortable or embarrassing the truth may be for the intelligence community?
Thank you for addressing this, Senator, and absolutely, that is what I've been asked to do.
And do you agree that the intelligence community should be impartial, apolitical, and never weaponized against U.S. citizens or the leaders they choose?
Absolutely, Senator.
Thank you very much for your straightforward answers. Thank you all very much, and congratulations on your nominations.
Senator Langford.
Chairman, thank you. Thank you all for going through the process. It's not a fun process to be able to do the preparation, everything else that you've done, and then be able to go through this. So I appreciate your dedication to the country and your willingness to be able to serve. Mr. O'Connell, I want to ask you a question because you're getting left alone all the time on this. I want to be able to just zero in on it. You've served in the Office of the Inspector General in the past. You've served as a prosecutor in the past. Stepping into one of the roles as a judge here in D.C. Is an incredibly important role, but my concern is always that people get access to justice. One of the challenges that we've had is attorneys aren't prepared when they walk in and they ask for an extension, they ask just for more time. Your judges just keep giving that. The person who's trying to get to justice can never get to justice. The family that's the victim can never get an answer there because everything gets delayed. How are you going to run your courtroom in such a way to be able to make sure people actually get to justice in a timely manner?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I certainly don't take it personally.
Yeah.
These are important issues that are being addressed. My experience as an assistant U.S. attorney in the Superior Court Division of the U.S. Attorney's Office here in D.C., I encountered it frequently where defense counsel were not prepared for trial, not prepared to proceed. And I think the judges of the Superior Court who were successful at managing those caseloads were able to use a number of tools to ensure that to hold accountable counsel who were unprepared. And certainly this was done with the interest of the clients of those counsel. Judges have to ensure that litigants, especially criminal defendants, are adequately represented. So a number of tools were used by judges. Certainly, when an assistant U.S. attorney would be unprepared, the judge would outright dismiss their case. So that was a circumstance that nobody ever wanted to encounter as a prosecutor. And I think it's a broader question, I think, that you're asking about the volume of cases in D.C. Superior Court. It's overwhelmingly overburdened. There are not enough judges, and there are too many cases.
Right. But there's an expectation that when the case comes to the court, the attorneys are prepared.
the case is going to get heard rather than just one more delay. If folks are actually ready to be able to get to the courtroom, the folks that are there seeking justice can actually get it.
That's exactly right.
I appreciate that. Mr. Fox, I want to be able to drill down. Thank you for stepping in this role as well. Your job is a tough one. You work for Congress. Congress is one who established the Inspector General. We have an expectation that you're the eyes and the ears of this United States Congress. To the intelligence community, you also work for the White House, and you work for the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Ultimately, you work for the American people. Your job is to be able to oversee people that literally we hire them to go steal secrets from other places and be as clandestine as possible. That's a tough job to say, we need you to go in and make sure that this is being done correctly. Let me ask you a couple questions with that. Number one is, we cannot have our secrets stolen. If there are processes in place that lead to somebody that's a contractor or an individual that's hired that's taking our secrets, part of the responsibility that's the Inspector General to be able to look over our own shoulder to be able to make sure that we have processes in place to prevent that. What are you going to do to make sure our secrets aren't being stolen? How are you going to engage in that way?
Thank you for that question, Senator, and I share your concern. It's very important across all 18 elements that we are simpatico in this effort to protect our secrets while also maintaining appropriate transparency with the public, and that is a balancing act in some ways. When it comes to holding individuals accountable for leaking information or selling information to a foreign power, there are a number of steps that we can take, hopefully to deter that activity in the first place. And that's something I'm prepared to look at as the IG. I can't commit to it now, given our many different priorities. I'd have to look at the work plan and understand the resources we have available and the other congressionally directed actions, but I'll stand ready to address that issue for the entire IC.
Okay, we look forward to that. Mr. Planke, thanks for stepping into this role as well on it. The Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015, it expires on September the 30th of this year. Secretary Noem has asked for its reauthorization. What do you see as the challenges that face the nation if it is not reauthorized?
Yes, Senator, thank you for the question. The CISA Act of 2015, created before CISA was created, is necessary in that it provides the sharing of information from business to business and business to government without exposing liability to those said parties. So a business that experiences a issue, a breach, detects an adversary, that type of information, they can share it without feeling pressure of liability across to other businesses so that they may protect themselves, and then also to the government, so the government may then distribute that information in a way that protects the greater good of America. And that's contained in the CISA 2015 bill.
Right, so, but if it expires, what happens?
If it expires, they lose the liability protection authority, Senator.
So we'll have less of that. Okay, yes, thank you.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to the nominees. Thank you for being here. Mr. Planke, if I could just start with you. One of the most troubling things that we have seen in the last few years when it comes to behavior by the government is the effort by the federal government to coerce and otherwise pressure social media companies to engage in mass censorship of private American citizens across a range of topics: COVID-19, vaccines, elections, school board meetings. And unfortunately, the agency that you've been nominated to lead was right in the thick of it, CISA. Much to that agency's shame, I must say, and I think in direct violation of the First Amendment of the United States, because what the Supreme Court has said over and over is the federal government cannot use private entities to do what the First Amendment bars the federal government from doing. And as you probably know, there's been much litigation about this. The discovery in that litigation is damning for many agencies in the federal government, including CISA. So my question is, what are you going to do to ensure that CISA gets out of the speech regulation business, the surveillance business when it comes to private American citizens, and gets back into what it's supposed to do, which is actually to keep us safe, not to regulate our speech, not to follow us around online, but to be stopping cyber attacks and ensuring cybersecurity?
Senator, thank you for that question, which I believe to be an important one, and so does Secretary Noem and President Trump. it is not CISA's job, and nor is it in its authorities to censor or determine the truths, whether it be on social media or in any level of media. CISA will not do any of that work, will not be a part of any of that work if I am confirmed. I'd like to focus CISA on what it's mandated to do, and that's protect the federal civilian executive branch, as well as protect the critical infrastructure of the United States. Cybersecurity is a big enough problem. We have adversaries at our door, inside our house, and all over us every day. If confirmed, I need my people at CISA to be focused on eradicating those adversaries from the federal government, computer systems, as well as critical infrastructure of the United States.
Let me just read some of the euphemisms that your predecessor used to talk about CISA's mission and the censorship effort. Narrative control, perception management, information integrity. That one's my favorite. You're telling me you're going to get CISA out of the business of policing narrative control. I mean, narrative control, good Lord. I mean, what could be more Orwellian than that? A federal government, the most powerful government in the world, engaged in narrative control? So your testimony here is that you will get CISA out of this business. You will comply with the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, and you will not engage in censorship of American citizens of any kind. Am I understanding you correctly?
Senator, to put it bluntly, yes, you are understanding me correctly.
Good. Let's talk about what that's going to look like in the election context. Obviously, CISA has important election security work, protecting our election infrastructure. That's important work. That's designated by statute. That, however, is different than monitoring political speech and monitoring political campaigns. How are you going to draw a line? Tell us how you're going to make the line clear between cybersecurity protections for our elections and political content moderation, which again is unfortunately what your agency has been involved in recent years.
Senator, thank you for that question. If confirmed, CISA's role, election security is a subsector of critical infrastructure, and it's election infrastructure that is the piece of that. And the president has already given guidance on this in his recent executive order. That guidance says that the Department of Homeland Security will focus on electronic election systems, so e.g. like a voting system, and that a American might use to vote, to ensure that it is assessed prior to an election that there is no adversarial actions or vulnerabilities in it. Now that is tasked in the president's executive order that he has already thought of, down to DHS. If Secretary Noem tasks CISA to do that, which I could imagine she likely will, my team, if confirmed, will focus on the assessments of that election infrastructure.
Good. Well, everything you said to me is encouraging. I'm glad to hear it. I know that you appreciate that CISA has a major trust deficit given what's happened in the last 4 years. And that's a problem because, we've gone so far in this body, there are tasks that, frankly, CISA ought to be performing, including things related to like the security of rural hospitals, which is very important to me, very important to my state. 40% of the hospitals in my state are rural. We need the cybersecurity help. But frankly, we've been very reluctant to use CISA for any of this because CISA has been a surveillance and censorship machine for the last 4 years. This has got to stop. We've got to get this agency back on track, and I hope that you're the right person to do it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Slotkin.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I understand this was raised before, but Mr. Fox, you're asking to be the Inspector General, or you've been nominated, excuse me, to be Inspector General of the entire intelligence community, having relationships with Inspector Generals and providing that objective stand-back investigation into really important questions of integrity in the intelligence community. I'm a former CIA officer, so this is important to me. And I think if we expect you to do that behind closed doors, we have to know that you're going to be objective. So what is your assessment of whether classified information was shared in the Signalgate exchange? Was there classified information that you're aware of placed on an unclassified system and shared with a journalist?
Thank you for the question, Senator, and I agree with you that it's very important that we protect our sensitive information. To my knowledge, the Secretary of Defense, who is the original classifier authority, OCA, on the content from DoD, determined that it was unclassified. And in my capacity as the Acting Chief of Information Management at ODNI, our practice is to defer to other agencies for information originating out of those agencies.
Okay, so even though we now have a report that that information was directly taken from a document labeled secret no foreign, with no declassification process that I've heard of formally going on, you believe that just because the Secretary of Defense was the Secretary of Defense, he got to declassify it just by putting it on Signalgate?
I'm not familiar, Senator, with DoD's policies when it comes to declassifying or determining the classification of information, but
well, that's a strong statement to say that I'm not familiar with DoD's processes, but you're saying it's unclassified. I mean, first of all, I want you to be familiar. If you're going to be the Inspector General, you're going to have to weigh in on a million of these cases when people, rank and file officers, leak information. So I would just say, it's hard to understand how the senior officer in charge of inspections and investigations on this issue can't speak clearly about how a potential leak of classified information is bad. And to be not familiar with the procedures is concerning. Let me ask another question related to the reporting. I believe you're right now the senior advisor to Tulsi Gabbard, is that correct?
My title is senior advisor, but I am performing in the capacity of acting chief of information management, Senator.
Got it, okay. So I guess what I'm having trouble understanding is, in the past couple of days, there's been reports out that your current boss has put forward going after Barack Obama and a bunch of reporting from, I think, 9 years ago now, on the exact same day that President Trump's name appeared in the Wall Street Journal as being in the Epstein files, the exact same day. It is hard to imagine that in the 4 years of the Trump administration previously, in the 6 months leading up to now, when there's been plenty of time for your boss, for you all in your front office to refer these issues to the Department of Justice, you picked the exact same day that the president knew he was going to be named as being in the files of a known pedophile, right, and a known sexual offender. Can you help me understand why? Because my 10-year-old nephew understands that that was a distraction, that we were talking about something that was 10 years old on the exact day that the president didn't want to be talking about his name being in those files. So can you answer for that?
Senator, I really appreciate the opportunity to address this. The declassification process is lengthy and it's significant, and we have an excellent team of officers who've been working on this for weeks.
You just said that that Secretary Hegseth could declassify under his authority and put out on public information a piece of secret no foreign information. So that took seconds, and I've seen presidents do this. I'm a CIA officer. Presidents can declassify very quickly. Are you saying that the reason why Tulsi Gabbard made that decision to announce yesterday or whatever it was 2 days ago was because of a lengthy declassification process? And you're talking to a CIA officer who's watched those things happen. So please tell me how in the 4 years of the Trump administration previously, it didn't get done, but yesterday it got done.
Senator, I appreciate that question and your service as a clandestine officer. These documents are reviewed very carefully and redacted as needed to protect sensitive sources and methods, and that's not an overnight process.
So
Time has expired.
Thank you, sorry.
We're getting close to the end. Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Allende, I've introduced bipartisan legislation to establish a pilot program with very strict federal oversight that would permit some state, local, tribal, and territorial law enforcement agencies to conduct operations to counter drone threats that are going to continue to be a persistent challenge for us. My question for you is, if confirmed as the Undersecretary for S&T, how would you help ensure that these law enforcement agencies have access to the safest, most effective technology necessary to accomplish this mission?
Senator, thank you for your question. I share your concern. In Florida, drones are something that we have a great deal of concern about. Within our portfolio at the Department of Management Services, we have the Florida Facilities Pool, which includes the Capitol and the Governor's Mansion. And so those are two very sensitive subjects for us, particularly when someone's flying a drone that should be unauthorized. If confirmed, in the context of your question in the federal space, my first step would be to get with the components in the law enforcement space, particularly those within DHS at the first instance, to understand what their needs, gaps, and wants would be to support their critical operations, and then work with the experts within the Director of Science and Technology to bring to bear already available technologies, technologies that can be incrementally modified to very quickly adjust to those needs, and if needed, specialized research. Although I think in the drone space, we've seen a lot of breadth in the market. So I would probably lean very heavily on the first two.
Very good. We have to do a lot more than that. So I'll look forward, if indeed confirmed, that we have to have further conversation on this. We're way behind in our abilities to protect the American people, the homeland, and need to take aggressive actions. Mr. Planke, CISA has a number of statutory requirements, such as CIRCIA, critical infrastructure protection stipulations under Homeland Security Act, National Communications Infrastructure Security mandates. You're well aware of the long list of responsibilities there. I know there's been some questions about the focus of CISA, and we can debate the past, but it was, I think it was a unit there folks are concerned about that had 15 people out of 3,000 people that work at CISA. From what I've heard from Secretary Noem, she says CISA is back on mission. It's ready to protect our country from cyber threats. So we have to lean in to make this happen. You're fully aware of the threats that we have. You understand the significant nature of them and how they're persistent, and we need resources to deal with it. So my question for you is, how would you ensure that all of the agency's statutory requirements are met, given potentially millions of dollars in budget cuts that we're seeing and hundreds of personnel leaving that agency? You're walking into an agency that's critically important, and it's having it's being cut off at the knees because some of alleged things that may have happened in the past but are not occurring now, according to the Secretary.
Yes, Senator. Thank you for that statement. One of the ways that I've found that's most effective to when you come in to lead an organization is to allow the operators to operate. Right? CISA has a number of the most capable cybersecurity people in the world. And if confirmed, like to get into that, provide them the direction, tell them what I would say is the hill we're going to take, charge up, and protect the American public from cybersecurity attacks on critical infrastructure in state and local areas, mom and pop small businesses, but then also the federal civilian executive branch. And I'm going to empower those operators to operate and do the best they can. And if that means we have to reorganize in some form or fashion, that's what we'll do. I'll lead that charge. And if that means that we need a different level of funding than we currently have now, then I will approach the Secretary, ask for that funding, ask for that support. I'm heartened by her understanding of the Department of Homeland Security and where she's applied her resources. As you can see, she's her and under the President's leadership, they've seen that the United States Coast Guard needed resources, and they provided those. I have no doubt if I go to her and tell her we're driving in this direction to protect the American public, she'll work under the President's leadership to then work with Congress to get us the funds we need.
Yeah, I appreciate that. These are folks who are already working very hard. You know, the cyber threat is increasing like this, and then our protection is going like that. Reorganizing maybe something to look at, but I want to, you have your Coast Guard experience. In the Coast Guard, there are auxiliary Coast Guard men and women. There are reserves. We don't have that at CISA. We can't call up the cyber protection reserves to come in to help us because the bad guys are coming at us with everything they have. I would hope, if confirmed, you're really focused on the resource needs and have the willingness to step up and tell folks, no, this is really important. And as a committee, we need to be engaged to back you up, not just from a funding, but any other additional authorities that you need. And I hope you make that commitment to me now.
Yes, sir, you have that commitment, absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all for your testimony. As we come to a close, I want to compliment the Trump administration and Secretary Noem for changing the policy on censorship. We had a CISA that was actually at one point in 2021 released a video that encouraged people to report their own family to Facebook if they challenged the government's narrative on COVID-19. Turns out many of the things the government said turned out not to be true. The things people have as far as opinions on medicine, vaccines, masks, a lot of times are simply opinions. In fact, almost always are opinions, and you can hear both sides of these things. But I compliment you for stopping this, but realize it's only temporary until the next administration. The way to make it permanent is when we reauthorize CISA. Everybody's been talking, they want CISA reauthorized. All right, we'll do it, but we're going to put in their anti-censorship language. And we need to make this part of the law. It already is the law. It's called the First Amendment. But we need to specifically prohibit CISA from getting involved in political speech. People on the other side immediately respond and they say, what about sex trafficking and this and that? And that's against the law. That's not constitutionally protected speech. So crimes, CISA will still be allowed to be involved with. Political speech, they won't. I think we can separate the two. But I think if we add language like that, we can get some permanence. I'm hoping we can come to a bipartisan agreement on this to add language in there, keeping CISA out of this. And it's like, to me, it simply distracts CISA from a job, we want, not to be, hacked in by foreign terrorists, et cetera, to protect our grid. All of those things are reasonable requests, but we're wasting time and money and simply angering. And really, it pits us all against each other, whether or not a cloth mask works or not. Is it 6 foot of separation or should have been 30 feet of separation? If you catch COVID once, can you catch it again? Will you die if you catch it again? These are opinions, and there are facts to support opinions, but CISA has got no business being involved in this. And really, they just shouldn't. There's something unseemly about it. The idea that agents from the Department of Homeland Security and or the FBI would be meeting with the media, to tell them, well, we're just not so sure that interview where Rand Paul said cloth masks don't work, and we're just not sure that, should be aired. I mean, that sounds like something you would see in a totalitarian regime. It really is terrible. But I compliment the Trump administration, Secretary Noem, for changing it. But I want everybody to know that we're going to reauthorize CISA, but we're going to put language in there, and I hope it can be bipartisan language that is going to protect speech and protect the First Amendment. Thank you all for coming. At this point, let's see where I'm going to. Last page. Somewhere I have my. Yeah, the nominees have filed responses to biographical and financial questionnaires, answering pre-hearing questions submitted to the committee, and had their financial statements reviewed by the Office of Government Ethics. Additionally, the committee has received letters of support for the nominees. Without objection, this information will be made part of the hearing record, with the exception of the nominees' financial data, which are on file with the committee. The hearing record will remain open until noon tomorrow. Thank you all. We are adjourned.